Hello everyone and welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be going over Anki, how to use it specifically for the MCAT. That means we're going to go over what settings to use, a tutorial on how to use it, and the different decks that I recommend for the MCAT. These are the settings and the decks that I use to get a 520 on the MCAT. I'm going to be showing you guys exactly what I did. If you don't know what Anki is, it's like a flashcard system, a flashcard app. It's completely free. It works on the concepts of space repetition. I think it's probably the single best thing you can do to increase your score for the MCAT. And overall, it's just super useful. So I'm going to be showing you completely from top to bottom how to install it, everything, the whole spiel. So let's jump right into it. First thing I'm going to do, open up a web browser and just type in Anki. Right here, Anki. Got the download one right here. If you have a Windows, go here. Mac, I have Intel Mac. And press download right there. Alright, once Anki is finished downloading, we're just going to click on it here. Applications. And now it is downloaded. Okay, so I've just successfully downloaded Anki and got it installed on my computer. Only reason it says Anki 2 is I have another Anki. I'm re-downloading it for the first time. But it should just say Anki. Press it and open it up. And we're going to select our language, English. Yes. And now we're in Anki right here. One of the first things you're going to want to do is create an Anki web account. You can see right here it says user. If we go to Anki, switch profile, we can add a new profile, name it, I don't know, MCAT, whatever. And then open under that profile the MCAT. And then when we press something like sync, it's going to say account required. A free account is required. Please sign up, blah, blah, blah. And so what you're going to want to do is sign up for an account, put in your email and your password. I'm not going to do it, but here you can do it here, and then log in on Anki. This allows you to do two things. One, it's going to save your progress whenever you do cards. It'll save your progress so you don't lose anything. And two, if you're using Anki across multiple devices like your laptop and your phone or your iPad, it'll sync all your cards up so that way you don't have to worry about that. So definitely sign up for there. I'm not going to do it, but you can just do it right there. Okay. In addition, on the Anki website, it has a tutorial here. Okay, time to jump right into the settings. So we've created our user, and again, you can create different profiles if you want, right there. First thing I'm going to do is go up to Anki and Preferences. Here you've opened the Preferences menu. Here you can change things like language and stuff. First thing I'm going to do is switch it to dark mode, just because I think it looks way so much better. The only other thing I'm going to be doing under the preferences besides switching to dark mode is if you go under review, you're going to want to have the V3 scheduler checked. And then these settings here, next day starts at 4 hours past midnight. This is when a new day will start in Anki. And so I like to keep mine at 4 a.m. because sometimes I'll be up past midnight studying. So if you were to set it at 0, meaning midnight, then it would reset then. But if you're going to stay up late, you can keep it at that. If you get up early, then you can change this, whatever. Learn ahead limit. I like to put mine at 60. This is just going to let you, if you have a card that's due in like 10 minutes, it's going to let you don't have to wait the 10 minutes. You can just go ahead if you have it set to 60. Time box limit, I just leave that at 0. Everything else under preferences, I don't really mess with too much. I do want to say, if you want a much more in-depth tutorial of Anki, check out the Anking's YouTube channel. He has a much more in-depth tutorials on everything Anki, way better than I could ever explain it. The reason I'm doing this video is because I wanted to make something specifically for the MCAT and the decks on how to use the MCAT. But I will definitely link the Anking's tutorials and channels below if you're wanting something more in depth. But that's all I'm going to do under the preferences here. Everything else I don't really worry about too much. Okay, now that we're in Anki, you see we have a few different options. Decks, Add, Browse, Stats, and Sync. We're going to go over each of those. So before we get started, we're going to need to get a deck. As you can see, we have no cards in Anki. We haven't got any. So there's a few different ways to do that. We can create a deck, get shared, or import file. We're going to be using other people's decks. So I'm going to be utilizing pre-made decks. Specifically for this video, I want to talk about the Anking's deck and Mr. Pankow's deck. So we'll go back to our browser. And I've made this handy dandy little MCAT guide, and I will share the link to this in the description below. And in here's a PDF guide going over everything I did to study for the MCAT. I'm going to have a separate video talking about that. And then if you open up this MCAT schedule, here's a template schedule, and this also has links to all resources used. And specifically, it has links to the Anki decks I used. The other way to do this, if you're looking for a specific deck, say the Anking deck, you can just Google Anking MCAT deck. Boom, there it is, pops right up. The other thing you can do is go to r/Anki MCAT, which is a great subreddit. If you ever have any problems, you can post here. And if you go on the sidebar here, here's comprehensive decks, Anking's deck, Jack Sparrow's deck, Miles Down deck, all of those decks. I'm just going to use the ones here. So I have a few decks linked here. Ones that I didn't use but are really popular are the Jack Sparrow and Miles Down deck. So if you're interested in those are linked right here. The ones that I use and I'm going to be talking about are the Anking deck and the Mr. Pankow Psych Soch deck. And I'll talk about those a little more. Let's get those downloaded first. So first thing, I'm going to click on this link. It's going to take me to the Reddit page. This is by the Anking explaining it. And then here's the link to the deck, Google Drive right here. And again, I just scrolled down to the first comment and there. And then it should look just like this, Anking MCAT V2. Download. Download anyway. Let's see, while we wait for that to download. So what is the Anking deck? So the Anking deck is the Miles Down deck, which is a really popular MCAT deck, plus a bunch of extra cards. I think like a couple thousand extra. So essentially, Anking is the Miles Down deck, but it's a lot more cards. And I think it's much more comprehensive, and it's what I used and what I recommend. The other one that people really like is Jack Sparrow. I've never used this one, but I'm sure it's also a really good deck. While we wait for that to download, the other deck that I'm going to be using is the Mr. Pankow Psych Soch deck. And so what this is specifically for the Psych Soch section. This deck follows along with the Khan Academy Psych videos, and I'll talk more about that later. But I'm going to download this deck too. This is the other deck that I used. In addition, on this page here, you can see linked, we have the Anki tutorial, as well as Miles Down's Anki settings plus tips. So you can check those out there. All right, my downloads are done. They're good to go. I'm going to go back into Anki here. And I'm just going to go import file and go to my downloads folder. Yes. And it should be these APKG packages. Open. And it's then going to import the deck into Anki for me. Okay, so I've just imported the Anking's deck into Anki, and this is exactly what it looks like. Right here you can see it says Anki MCAT, Miles Down MCAT depths, and then it has each of the sub decks in it. So behavioral, biochemistry, biology, equations, blah, blah, blah. We'll get into what some of these numbers and mean in a little bit. So if you press decks, this just takes you back to this page where your decks are. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to Browse. And this is going to show us all our cards here. This. And so you see if we go to decks here, we can go to Anking MCAT. You should have 5,310 cards. That's how many cards are in the deck. And then you can go to each subdeck as well. And here you can see all the cards, blah, 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 biology, biochemistry, blah, 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 and so forth. Same thing if we import the Mr. Pankow Psych-Soc deck. I'll add that in now. Okay, added that deck in. And then same thing, if we go up here to Browse, we can hit MCAT, and you should have 2,254 cards. Okay, let's talk about settings here. So to do the settings for a deck on the side here, this little settings button, here you can rename, export, delete. We're going to go to Options. And this is where we're going to set our settings for the deck. I'm using the Anking settings from his tutorial, so these are his settings exactly, but I'm just going to be entering them in. Again, if you want a much more detailed explanation, you can check out his tutorial. I'm going to go over to under daily limits here, new cards a day, set it to 9999. Maximum of user day, 9999. Under new cards, I like to set this to 25 minutes and then 1 day. And these are personal preference. You can change these around, whatever works for you, but I like doing 25 minutes and 1 day. And if those numbers don't make any sense to you, they'll start making sense once you use Anki. Anki isn't the most intuitive thing, but once you start using it, it makes a lot more sense, I think. Under graduating interval, I'm going to go 3, and under using interval, I'm going to keep it at 4. Keep this as sequential. Under lapses, relearning steps, I'm going to keep the 10 minutes, and then I'm going to add 1 day. Keep this as 1 and 8. Due date, yep, everything there is good. I'm not going to change anything over here. Bearing, advanced. Maximum interval, this is just exactly how far out it can set your cards. So right now it has it set to a year. If you want to change that, this is number of days. So if you want to set it out to 6 months, then you would do half this, so forth. I'm just going to leave it the same for now. Only thing I'm going to change is under new interval, do 0.20. And these are the Anking settings exactly. And then I'm going to hit save. You will also notice, if we go back into the settings, under the top here it has default. And so this is the default settings that are going to be used by all decks, but we can also add a preset, and we can name this, I don't know, we can say Anking. And then if we want to have separate settings, like for each deck, if you want to have one deck where, I don't know, I'm going to delete this preset. If we go over to this guy, our Mr. Pankow deck, we can add a preset. And it's reset our settings back to the default. But you can change it to whatever you want. If you want to change, whatever. So personal preference, whatever you want to do for each deck. I'm just going to save it like that. Okay, so that's it for settings. While we're on the topic of decks, I also just want to highlight create deck. If you want, you can create your own deck. For example, while you're going through your full lengths practice exams, you can make cards of whatever you get wrong. So you can make your own deck. And then, so now we've created a deck. And then to add cards to it, you would just press add. What type of card do you want? A basic just means a front and back card. And then if we go to practice exams, you could say, let's say you got, what is this amino acid? And then you can add in like a picture and you can say, oh, it's tryptophan or whatever. So that's how you make your own cards. Delete that deck. Okay, the other options you see up here, we've covered decks, add. If you go to stats, this is just statistics. This is going to cover how many cards you've studied. As you can see, I've obviously studied no cards, but this is a great way to monitor your progress. It's going to give you lots of stats and all that. Sync, this is where the Anki web account comes in handy. When I press sync, it's going to want me to sign up. So let's say I go through and I study 100 cards. And so after I study those 100 cards, I want to press sync so that way it saves my progress. That way, if I want to go on my phone later and keep studying, I can do that. It'll also sync automatically every time you start the app and every time you close the app. It will sync automatically, assuming I would need to be signed in. But assuming you're signed in, that should work. Okay, now I want to go back to browse and talk a little bit more about how to actually use these decks and how they work. So these, if we go under the Anking deck, you can see we have all these cards here organized by subdecks based on their category. But if you go over here, they also have all these tags. Oops. There we go. All those tags right there. And so we can use those to kind of stay a little more organized. And so the first thing I'm going to do, as you can see in Anki, it says we have 5,310 cards. I do not want to do 5,310 cards. That's a little too many for me. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to Anking MCAT deck here. I'm just going to press a card, press Command or Control A. That will highlight all the cards. We're going to right click and then we're going to go toggle suspend. And the cards should have parentheses around them and they should be yellow. If we go back to this guy here, you can see now we have 0 cards. We've suspended all the cards. They're still there, but if we press the deck, it says, you finished this deck. There's nothing to study because we've suspended all the cards. And so this is going to allow us to strategically pick which cards we want to do. So this is how you're going to start out. You're going to suspend all the cards, just like that. Then you're going to head down to tags here. Anking MCAT V2. Open that guy up. And then if you go to Kaplan here, you can see they're also organized by Khan Academy and some other things. Open that guy up, and we can see we have our subdecks, biology, biochemistry, and so forth. I'm going to open up the biology one, and now you can see it's tagged into separate chapters. And so let's say you've just completed your first day of studying. You just read Kaplan Biology Chapter 1, The Cell, and you want to do all 71 of these cards. So you're going to go over here, you're going to hit Command or Control A. You're going to right click and go toggle suspend again. And now the cards should be unlocked just like that. We have 71 cards. And if we wanted to study these, nucleoid region is found in the blah, 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 and so forth. When you're looking at your decks, use these tags. A lot of people get confused on how to use the decks because they'll just go up to here to decks and they'll see like biology and they'll be like, this isn't organized at all. This is just the whole deck. That's because it's not organized here. You have to go specifically down to tags, and that's where everything will be. So like I just said, you'll unsuspend these cards. Once you have unsuspended and done cards, let's say I go through and I do that whole chapter, do the 71 cards, you're never going to want to resuspend these cards. Keep them unsuspended. They're going to stay in the Anki algorithm. So once you unsuspend and do cards, never resuspend. Anki will do its thing from that point. The only reason we're suspending first and then unsuspending as we go is just so we can pick which cards we want to start out with, so we're not just going in random order. Let's say now the next day you study general chemistry, chapter 1. Or I want to find a deck with a lot of cards. Must be somebody in here. Here we go. The biochemistry chapter 1. This has 100 cards. Let's say you're a little busy that day and you're like, I don't want to do 100 cards today. You can just scroll until you select, maybe we'll do 50 cards. So we'll do like half. And then we'll highlight those, click, toggle suspend, and now those cards are now active. Should look just like that. And then if we go back to Anki, you can see these have been added. And if we hit the plus here, you can see it'll break it down for us. It'll say we have 50 cards from our biochemistry deck and 70 cards from our biology deck. So that's how to effectively use these tags as well as the suspend feature. And that's the way I did it and how I recommend doing it is just suspend all cards, unsuspend as you go, whatever you do, and so forth. If we want to jump in now to actually using Anki, so how do you use Anki? So we're going to press Anking MCAT, and you can see we have 120 new cards. I'm going to hit study now, and it'll say amino acids are simply organic compounds containing a blank group and a blank group. These cards are called closed deletion cards. They're not your stereotypical flashcards with a front and back. And so what you're going to do is when you're ready for the answer, you're going to hit the space bar. It's going to give you the answer right here. Also give you more resources, a picture, and a Khan Academy link. And then it's going to give you 4 options at the bottom. We're going to talk about these 4 options. Those are again, hard, good, and easy. And then they have a time interval above them. So let's say you had no idea what the answer to this card was. Completely wrong. You're going to want to hit again. It's going to show you that card again in less than 25 minutes, pretty much almost immediately. If this card was hard for you, you're going to want to hit the hard button. You'll see it again in a day. If this was good, you thought it was fine, you're going to hit good, you'll see it again in a day. The reason these are both, you'll say, what's the difference between hard and good? Well, if you hit hard, it's going to change the settings of the card, so it's going to show up more often. Whereas if you hit good, it's not going to change the settings of the card, it'll just stay normal. So even though the intervals might be the same now, they might change later. And then easy, if this was super easy for you, hit that and it'll send it 4 days out. I would say 95% of the time you're going to want to either hit good or again. And good meaning if you do know it, again if you don't know it. Hard and easy can be used sometimes, but I think like vast majority of the times just stick with good if you know it, again if you don't know it. That just keeps kind of the Anki algorithm. I think it'll keep the cards that you do know in a good rhythm, and it'll show you the cards that you don't know. Sometimes I would use the hard and easy ones, but like 95% of the times I hit good or again. Good if you know it, again if you don't know it. So I'll hit good. You can also, if you don't want to, so to show the answer here, blank is the only amino acid that is not chiral. That's glycine. If I hit the space bar, it shows me the answer. And if I want to hit good, I can just hit the space bar again, and that'll select good for me. And then you can also, instead of hitting again, you can hit 1 on your computer, or 2 for hard, 3 for good, and 4 for easy, and so forth. And so you can go through and you can do all these cards. Blah. And now I'm starting to hit the again button. There, I just hit again on a bunch of cards. I'm going to go back to deck. So you can see we still have a bunch of new cards here, but we also have these learn cards. Those are the cards that I hit again on. So those cards are no longer new, but we're seeing them again. So now they're in the learn category. Likewise, the cards that we hit good on, if we showed up again tomorrow, they're going to be under this learn category. And those cards are going to be in that category for quite a bit until they graduate, and then they're going to be in this do category here. They're going to be green highlighted cards right here. And so when cards are new, they'll be here. When you're learning them, they'll be here. And then when they've graduated, they'll be in the do category here. You're going to want to do all the learn and do cards every single day. The new cards, those ones you control, obviously, how many new cards you do a day. Always, always, always do the learn and the do cards every single day. Anki only works if you do it every single day. So always do your cards every single day. Do not, really can't hit the point home enough. Do your cards every single day. So once again, you'll come back, you'll do Anki every day, you'll come back tomorrow, and you'll have more cards over here, and then eventually you'll have cards over here, and then, if you want to do 50 new cards, or in this case 82, then you'll do that many, and so forth. Keep in mind, don't do too many new cards at first because these cards are going to start building up. Because again, if you do 50, let's say you want to do 50 new cards each day, that means you would do 50 cards the first day, but the next day you're going to have 100 cards. You're going to have 50 new ones and 50 from the previous day, and so on and so forth. And these are going to start building up. And I forgot to mention, under these time intervals, these are going to start getting longer the more you see a card. So the longer you see a card, like the good option here, right now it's a day. The next time you see it, it'll be 3 days, then maybe 7 days, then 2 weeks, and then a month, and so forth, assuming you're pressing good. If at any point you press again, and you forget a card, it's going to reset that card and it's going to start showing it to you all over again. That's how Anki works. It works off the idea of space repetition. It's showing you things farther and farther apart, and it works really, really well. Okay, so that's everything for the Anking deck. Now I want to talk a little bit about Mr. Pankow's Psych Soch deck. So what is that? So Reddit user Mr. Pankow, he made a deck specifically for the Psych Soch section of the MCAT, and it's really good. I highly recommend it. I didn't use you can see the Anking has a behavioral section. I did not use that. In fact, I deleted it. So I just went under the behavioral here and did delete. That way it just wasn't in my way. And instead, I used Mr. Pankow's deck right here, 2,254 cards. The reason I used his deck is it follows along the Khan Academy videos in which there's a Khan Academy 300-page document. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you go back under this document, under resources I use, 300-page Psych Soch document right here, and it's this PDF. It follows along the Khan Academy videos. These are just transcribed notes, and this document has it is long, but this has like everything on the Psych Soch section of the MCAT. I scored a 132 on which is the max score, if you don't know, on the Psych section of the MCAT, and all I did was like this document and Anki and UWorld, which I'll talk about in a different video. So super, super useful. How the deck is organized, if you go under, so you can see on the main deck, Psych Soch, and you can see it's labeled 8C, 9A, 9B, 9C, 6A. What are those numbers? What do those mean? Well, if you go to Khan Academy MCAT, this is also linked in my, yeah, right here, linked in my document. And you go down to behavior right here. Oh, whoops, Foundation 6 right there. So you can see right here it says Foundation 6 processing the environment, blah, 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 Foundation 7. And so that's what these numbers mean. 6A, 6B, and 6C correspond to Foundation 6 processing the environment. So if you want to go in the order of the 300-page document or the psych videos, you would go 6A, 6B, 6C, 7A, 7B, 7C, 8A, 8B, 8C, 9A, 9B, 9C, and so forth. You get the idea. Now we're going to do the same thing we did with the Anking deck. We're going to go to the main deck. We're going to do Command or Control A and toggle suspend. And that's going to suspend all the cards just like we did before. And now you can see under this deck we have 0 cards due. And so then let's say you want to start off with 6A. That's where it starts. 254 cards. Now that's a lot of cards to do at once, so I don't want to do all of them, but I want to highlight a different strategy than what I showed with the Anking deck. So if I go over here, hit Command A, right click, toggle suspend, it's now unsuspended all the 6A cards, 254. And we can see that's the case here. It has 254 cards. Now, that's a lot of cards. I do not want to do that many cards, new cards in one day. And so if I go to settings here, options, when I was doing this deck at the time, I did 40 new cards a day. So I would go in and I would just say 40 and save. And now it sets it to 40. It's also going to change this one, but we won't worry about that. You can create a separate preset or you can go in and just change it back to 9999. But you can set it to 40, and this is going to limit your new cards to 40 a day. And so now I don't need to go and unsuspend the rest of the 6A cards. I can just go do my 40 cards right here, blah, blah, blah. And then when I pop up Anki tomorrow, it's going to have 40 new cards right there for me. So that's another strategy you can use, is doing that. Set this back to 999. And that right there is the Mr. Pankow deck. So I just go through it like that. Again, you're suspending all the cards when you start, and then as you go, unsuspend, and then keep the cards unsuspended. Never resuspend cards once you've done them. It messes with the Anki algorithm. And then that's once you're done, hit sync all your cards, and that is everything, or at least everything I can think of. The only other thing I want to talk about a little bit is add-ons. Add-ons are things you can use to kind of improve Anki, make it better. There's a bunch of different add-ons. The Anking has like several videos on add-ons. The only one that I ever used was, if you go to my MCAT guide here in this PDF, scroll to the bottom. Here's my Anki settings, by the way. Is this one called Heat Map. It looks kind of cool. It looks like this. I'll talk about it in a second. But if you find an add-on that you like, you're going to find the add-on, scroll to the bottom, and then it has this code. To download this add-on, please copy and paste the following code. So I'm going to go here, copy this code, go back to Anki, and I think it's under Tools. Yeah, if you go under Tools, hit Add-ons, Get Add-ons, yeah, Get Add-ons, paste that code in, press OK. It's going to download. It's going to want me to restart Anki for me to see the changes. So I'm going to do that real quick. And there you go. Now you have this nice little heat map, which is really cool because it tells you your average number of cars, your streak, and like your current streak, and you can then like highlight. Whoops. You can highlight, like it'll show us today. Oh, we did 60 cards today, and then it'll say, oh, tomorrow you have 43 cards, and then no cards each date. And it kind of keeps you. It helped me keep accountable, and it looks kind of cool. You can change the settings for it as well, like the color and stuff. Yeah, you can change it to like, yeah. So that's just one example of an add-on that I used and I liked. With that being said, that's everything that I can think of for how to use Anki for the MCAT. That's everything I did to get a 520 on the MCAT from start to finish. I really recommend those decks. Final point is do Anki every single day. Every single day that you study without exceptions. Maybe not the day before you take the test, but do it every single day. That's the only way it really works, and it really does work. It works so well. I'm going to make another video, or I might, at the time of having this, I might already have another video detailing everything I did to study for the MCAT, but this was just my Anki video. So yeah, thank you guys for watching.